Hello, and welcome to the podcast where good trivia gets rewarded and bad lies are punished. But will we catch the lies? This is What's the Fact.
I hope we catch the lies because I love the punishments.
Dirty.
Hello, people. Welcome to the show. My name's Ryan Witzel. This is Warren Robertson, and we are delighted to have you join us.
Yes, for a podcast called Weapons.
Weapons.
What's wrong with you? Why did you? No. Listen, it's a fascinating topic. Why did you click you were going to listen to an hour of facts about weapons? I got to tell you, this one I think I've made worthwhile.
They're everywhere, weapons. They're everywhere.
I mean, it's the biggest industry in the world, according to some sources.
Yeah.
But
history everywhere. Bible, if you like, everywhere.
Nobody likes the Bible. Not even people who go every Sunday to listen to the Bible like the Bible. Exactly. Half of those people are asleep.
There's even, now that we're talking about it, I didn't want to bring it up, but there's even the what's it called? The spiritual weapons. There's the helmet of salvation.
No,
the breastplate of righteousness. The shield of faith.
Speaking of weapons, what is this that you've chosen for us to drink?
It's, you must embrace your metrosexualism. It's a red berry apple cider.
Do you remember when metrosexualism was a phrase that people would use? Like the early 2000s, David Beckham kind of.
Yeah, it's actually used Nivea, really.
Really? I mean, that's largely what it is, yeah.
It's like if an oak goes to the barber and the barber starts doing things on his face.
Like cutting the hair between his eyebrows.
Yeah. Look, I think have barbers always shaved you? Is that a thing? I've been when I was feeling a bit lazy
can't afford it.
And I was visiting someone and I hadn't had the time to have a shave. I've had a shave at a barber.
I've had one shave at a barber before, but the fear I have with barbers, and this is specifically Middle Eastern barbers.
Because we are talking weapons,
No, not yet. But specifically Middle Eastern barbers is that they always want to give you a bit of a massage, like a scalp massage. They want to crack your neck, and I've had a couple of those guys crack my neck, and then I've left like queasy, like it's done damage to my spine.
I got to tell you, I like that shit.
No, I like the damage to my spine, right? I've got one spine, exactly one.
You must relax, man. Just let him do his thing with your. It's just a quick.
No, I know too much about chiropractics to know just how dangerous that shit is.
And he's a barber.
Yeah, so I'm just like, cut the hair and fuck off. I'll deal with my ear hairs and my nose hairs and the hair between my eyes, and I'll shave my.
So you haven't
face.
had the wax in the nose. Incredible experience.
Oh, is it really?
Incredible experience. And the ears. Incredible experience.
Grahamstown in, I think, 2016. Went to go there to do the Makanda Arts Festival.
Yes.
Makanda, as it's now known. And and I stayed with another comedian who shall remain nameless. And he used to wax his nose, but like he had a little pot for it that he used to warm up the wax in.
Wow.
And then he had the little sticks that he'd stick up his nose, and then he'd let
and you
them
leave it for a bit, yeah?
Yeah, and then like a half a head of hair would come out with each thing.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't thought about Dale Amler in a while.
Did Dale do that?
Yeah.
Well, we're talking weapons, and you love a bit of weapons. I'll let you start, eh?
Yeah, all right. Let me start. Yeah, it is in fact my turn. Where am I going to start now? All right, let's start with World War II. Let's get World War II right front and center. A golden age for weapons. The weapons manufacturing companies loved themselves a world war. If they could, they'd turn this Ukraine thing into a world war. They're trying. They're desperate. But anyway, my fact about World War II is during World War II, the most successful anti-ship plane was a fabric-covered biplane with a top speed of roughly 1/3 of that of the Spitfire.
Fabric-covered
biplane. So double wings.
And it's very slow. And that's the best anti-ship one.
Yeah, and it's the best in the whole of World War II.
It's dropping, obviously, big bombs on these ships. Well, maybe the fact that why would it have to be fabric covered?
Because that's how you built a biplane in World War I.
What do you mean by fabric covered? It's like it got a jersey on it.
Yeah, you used steel struts to build the wings, and then you put canvas over them,
Why?
Covered them
Just
so it could lift off. So it could get off the ground. That's how you built a biplane, right?
Oh, those things, the double wings.
Yeah, the double wing biplanes.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm saying that in World War II, not World War One, World War II, the top anti-ship plane was a fabric-covered biplane. That's what
Can
I'm
I
saying.
interrogate you about which was it Pacific or Atlantic? Who was this? American, Japanese, or was it British and German? And
No, you can't. Right, no, all right. Let me. Sorry, ask the questions one at a time.
I want to know which area of the world was it being used in?
All over Europe.
Which oceans?
All over Europe. Atlantic. What is the other one? Mediterranean.
Yeah,
North Sea. North Sea.
So not the Pacific
Yeah, North
War,
Sea.
not the
Yeah,
Japanese,
no, all of that.
American
All of that.
war.
The whole war, in fact, 1939 to 1945.
Are you talking cuck is the big question. Biplane, okay. Traveling slow is not a bad idea. But the ships have got things that are going to shoot you out of the sky. Traveling slow, at least you can maybe drop the bomb nicely. And something about this is telling me it's probably true. Something weird about this. I'm going to say it's true. It's true, but I've got my doubts. Like Thomas.
Ask me some questions. Let's see if we can clear those doubts up. Make sure that you believe it.
So did it have guns on it? Did it have guns? Or did it shoot stuff? Or did it just drop stuff?
It had a gun, but the gun was useless.
So they were dropping bombs, like out of the fucking...
No. Yeah, it had a gun.
Okay.
In fact, it had a seat for a gunner.
I mean,
That's that. Yeah, it had a seat for a gunner, I'm going to say.
I think when it comes to the Enola Gay, we sang the little song earlier. It was basically, it wasn't a very sophisticated drop. It wasn't like
a Flying Fortress, though, wasn't it?
Was it?
Enola Gay, a Flying Fortress, yeah.
And then it was like, but okay, there's the thing, and then there. But it was like, it wasn't part of the system of the plane to drop it. They had to just sort of drop it themselves.
No, it definitely opened out. It was a Flying Fortress. It opened up and a
button,
bomb went out. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
the interesting thing, the rudimentary thing about a lot of the bombs that got dropped there was that the sights were made out of human hair, the actual sights, because they didn't have the technology to develop something thin enough and inaccurate enough to put across the sighting portal. And human hair just turned out to be really cheap, really kind of very thin, very easy to use. So in a lot of the bombers, they used human hair. That's just the total aside.
Okay.
But they had a system for dropping a proper.
No, and you're saying
bomb.
the best ship bomber.
Think about World War II, right? You had different bombers, like proper professional bombers that were bombing London, Dresden, absolutely. They had professional dropping dozens of bombs each. It wasn't a case of no, it wasn't.
Because in World War I, it was more just the pilot himself.
Ooh, I've got a bomb.
No, tell you, here comes.
That's right. And I'm saying the most successful
advanced.
anti-ship plane was like that. Was I mean, not that the pilot dropped it out. I'm saying it was that sort of plane. It was that sort of like.
Unless you're taking the piss
biplane.
and you're saying that's what the kamikaze pilots used. Okay,
No,
I'm
that's
going to
not what I'm saying.
say.
They were in mono wing.
Okay, all right.
Metal.
I'm going to say, when all is said and done, I've decided no. You're talking cuck.
You can
No.
ask questions. I'm happy for you to ask questions. If you want to ask a couple of questions, I'm fine with it.
So
I'm nearly finished this
You
thing.
said speed was very slow.
Hmm.
No, this thing's going to get shot to shit, man.
No,
Can't
what
fly
I'm saying
away.
is a Spitfire would go to 600 kilometers an hour top speed.
Yeah.
About.
Yeah.
Maybe on the downhill
Sure.
they could do 700. But this thing was going like 200.
No, man, it's going to get shot to shit. It's an old thing. No, you're lying. It's time to...
You can ask questions, right?
I don't have any more technical...
You just decided
things.
I'm
I
full of
don't
it.
really know. Like, okay, speed I've addressed. Releasing of ammunition I've addressed as best I can. And then the cumbersome nature of it is just ridiculous. It's going to get shot to shit by the things by the artillery, by the tail gunners. They're going to shoot this thing to shit. Can't be the most successful thing in the Second World War. Nay, lie.
Nah, all right. Well, then let me tell you a story. So in the lead up to World War II, very famously, the British were behind in their technological development. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how. There was arguments in the Navy around, was something like an aircraft carrier a valuable thing? So while I think they had 17 aircraft carriers, only one of them was a recently built aircraft carrier capable of launching modern planes. So this meant that they had a bunch of these other aircraft carriers that were too small. They were too, to actually run a proper full length runway off of them.
Yeah.
So that design where there's a turret on the one side and a full runway on the other side, that came in around that period. But the British hadn't developed any of these things. So they kind of changed some old ships to be aircraft carriers. But now the problem with that was that the planes couldn't take off on these things. So they very quickly rushed out a kind of a government thing saying, listen, we need planes that can take off from this. And a company came forward by the name of Fairey. And Fairey came forward and they developed an old-fashioned biplane. And the one thing about an old-fashioned biplane is it's light because of that fabric covering.
Yeah.
So these things could be fired off a catapult off of these short aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
And they developed a plane called the Fairey Swordfish that indeed became, over the course of the war, the most successful anti-ship plane in the war on any side. And it was a biplane. It was fabric covered. By the time it came out in 1936, it was already considered obsolete. It was already like the technology was all wrong. It was too slow for some, like it would do 200 kilometers an hour. But the one thing it was also was incredibly maneuverable. So you could put it in a dive, head towards the ocean, and then pull up literally at 60 meters above the ocean, and it would move. Jeez. Whereas your chasing plane would dive straight into the ground. Jeez. And they also had a thing where they could literally stand it up on end, and it would effectively stop. And whoever was chasing it would overshoot the thing. They couldn't turn around. They couldn't do anything. So there's a lot of stories of these guys literally going loaded up with arms. You could load it up with loads of armaments. For some reason, these things shouldn't have been able to carry the payloads they were being asked to pay. Like they literally did the math. They shouldn't be, but they were carrying these things. They were loading them up with as many as 8 different bombs at the same time, launching them off a catapult. These guys would chug along below the line of most anti-aircraft fire at 200 kilometers an hour, arrive at their target and bomb them with the torpedoes, turn around and chug their way back. And in fact, these guys had a couple of very big, very noticeable victories. The first was the German battleship Bismarck, which the day before had sunk the cruiser HMS Hood, the 24th of May, 1941. Sure. And the Bismarck was like an indestructible German battleship. And 2 days later, on the 26th of May, a strike force of 15 Swordfish, flying from the Ark Royal, managed to hit the Bismarck with 2 torpedoes. The first one did nothing. The second one damaged its rudder. And it was busy after this fight with the HMS Hood, heading back into German waters where it was going to be repaired. And by hitting the rudder, it landed up only being able to turn in one direction, and it sat spinning in circles until the British Navy was able to show up and eventually sink it.
Jeez.
So, yeah, I mean, that was 1941. In 1940, they a bunch of these planes, in what's believed to be an inspiration for Pearl Harbor, by the way, managed to take control of the Mediterranean from the Italians when they raided an Italian harbor. I think it's called Taranto. I just need to make 100% certain here. Taranto Harbor. 20 of these planes flew into Taranto Harbor because the Italians had a really nice navy. They were able to own the Mediterranean, which was, of course, a bit of a nightmare for the British because they had to supply North Africa. They had to supply troops all around. So it was a really big problem. And so 20 of these Swordfish went in, and in one night they sank 3 Italian battleships and injured a bunch of others, damaged a bunch of others. So, yeah, I mean, these things, the thing that they really became good at was because they were now on the back of aircraft carriers, unlike many other planes, they managed to solve Churchill's biggest problem, which was the inability to defend supply ships coming from America. So what was happening with the supply ships was they were coming and they were being hit by the U-boats very famously. But planes taking off from England couldn't fly far enough out to defend those merchant vessels from the U-boats. So the U-boats were basically just sitting out there picking off the merchant vessels and starving England. So now with these swordfish on the back, the swordfish became really good at picking off the U-boats, because the U-boats would have to surface in order to recharge all their batteries, and they'd have to spend quite a bit of time on the surface when these guys would come in and just hit them with drop bombs.
Wow.
And obviously a submarine is quite it's not designed to defend itself from the air. So while they were sitting there, which meant then that they had to sit during the day and start recharging themselves during the day, because then they could see the planes coming. Only when they'd recharging themselves during the day, they were more easy targets for the number of bombs that were being carried by these swordfish. So actually, these swordfish were U-boat killers.
Jeez,
and
this
by
is
the end
amazing.
and by the end of the war, they'd taken more tonnage. They'd sunk more tonnage in enemy shipping than any other plane. So they were.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So they used to be called the string bag, because that's effectively what they were. Was they these old like sacks of string and canvas that the pilots used to fly out on, and
you see, it's again the power of improvisation. Eh? It's like, we have a problem. Well, what have you got? Let's see if you can solve it with what you've got. And you'll be surprised about what you've got.
There's a famous story of one guy. He's just done a raid on a on a ship in the North Sea, freezing conditions. It's an open cockpit. He's flying himself back, and he's late. And guys are sending him urgent radio messages. Where are you? What's happening? What's happening? And he sent back a thing that was just like, I just had to deal with 3 German planes. And effectively what he'd done was just putted himself around, and using maneuverability had wasted their time for like an hour until they ran out of fuel, had to fly back to land, and then chugged his way home.
It's great, man.
Yeah. So this is, there you are.
Oh, that's
fairy
lovely.
swordfish. And it's not a plane that people talk about at all, right? Like I hadn't heard about the fairy swordfish. It's not mentioned amongst the Hawker Hurricanes and the Spitfires, and I mean even the Messerschmitts or even the American Mustangs.
It's like, it makes me want to watch the Netflix show on World War II in color now, because I was like, but actually this detail is the fascinating stuff.
That's it, Joe.
Yes, it's lovely.
But a lot of what they did was effectively sank merchant vessels in the Mediterranean as well. They managed to keep the Mediterranean clear and open, and stop the Italians and the Axis powers from supplying their troops in North Africa. So,
wow. Incredible.
It's a good thing.
That's a splendid fact from World War II. And I thought I'd start things right up until like now. Like right now, Ukraine, Russia, still at it. You said Bakhmut would go on forever, and you were right. Bakhmut's gone on forever.
Now the news today, dating this podcast, is that they've managed to set up a pincer movement on Bakhmut. And you're like, again, the Ukrainians are trying to take Bakhmut.
But one of the great Ukrainian advances was there was all a talk about these HIMAR things, and that really turned the tide of the war a little bit. It allowed Ukraine to take definitely Kherson region. Maybe Kharkiv was because of the HIMARS. I'm not sure, but they did it with only, here's my fact, with only 50 of these HIMAR things.
I mean, those HIMARS are insane. They basically, effectively they release.
They are insane.
Yeah. They effectively release, as far as I understand it, like rockets that break into smaller rockets, or they cover a large area. So they basically artillery strike an entire area with just one shot.
So they can. Their range differs. There's 3 types of accuracy systems on it. So you can choose one.
I like that. It's kind of like how you're going to choose your, the memory on your cell phone. I'd be like, I want the 256 gigabyte one, please. I want the highly accurate HIMAR, please. The one that can destroy even from 350 kilometers away.
And so it also, depending what you're firing and what your objective is, the range is from 80 kilometers away. That's very far. It's very far. It's like further than Joburg
No,
and
man,
Victoria.
I can drive that distance in an hour.
You can. And up to 300 kilometers away. I mean, yes, he's like shooting an oak in Harry Smith when he's driven from Joburg. You know, the oak thinks he's going to get away. No, they can take him out.
No, you know,
He's already at Harry Smith.
But this shit upsets me because this is somebody's job, right? Is to sit and be like, yo, how do we kill oaks from 300 kilometers away? Like, fuck your job. You know, like I thought I hated bankers, but quit. Your job is shit. Like, what is a HIMAR for if it's not killing people, right? It's not like you can, you know, like it's like hunters are like, no, we need rifles so we can hunt, so we can eat the meat. And, you know, I mean, we use every bit of the animal. Whatever. What the fuck is a HIMAR for except massacring people? Like on large amounts of people. Fuck you and your job.
Now I got to tell you about the best part. You're gonna hate this part. The best part of the HIMAR, of course, it's
Best part.
It's the most effective part.
Okay.
Of course, do you know who makes them?
Bill Gates and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
It's the Americans. And the best part about them is this is so like Yankee, you know, it's the old, they can shoot and scoot, man. They can shoot and scoot. So they're on a fast moving truck, a light fast moving truck that can traverse all sorts of interesting terrain, little 4x4-ish. And so you can shoot and drive fast to your next place and shoot. So they won't, by the time they've traced where it came from, if they're even able to do that, I don't know. You've moved, you're fucking 50K shooting somewhere else.
I just want to confirm, it's not the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They just made the tracking vaccines.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right? They just made the vaccines that could track you and give you heart problems like a year later. That's right?
Yes, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so who made the HIMAR?
And it's American made. That's all I.
Oh, so
yeah, it's not German. It's American. And of course, because of its lightweight, these planes that can land in very, you know, shitty, don't need serious airport type planes. I mean, as they land in a conflict zone, just open up and the HIMAR drives out and starts fucking pumping oaks.
Yes, it's like when you call your friend, like bad Brad. Like when you call your friend and he comes from the gym and he just fucking runs into the club and he moves oaks. And then he's out of there before the cops come.
That's the HIMAR.
Like yeah. Like
so they turned the tide with only 50. That's my fact.
No, I mean, I believe it because those things, they are insane. They are insane. I mean, it's literally like you see those things fire and, like, I mean, I think it could be even less than that. You know what I mean? Like, it could be even less than 50. It could be 8. You know, like, I mean, they're insane. They're insane. I don't, like, somebody has developed the ultimate killing machine and they went home that night and then they had a wank, you know? They watched the news and they had a wank. You know, like the weapon technology, I'm both impressed and horrified by. You know, like I hate it. I hate the whole thing.
I know. It's there's no laughing matter.
Anyway, how many of them were there, right?
Well, the fact was 50. Only 50.
I'm saying there's less. There were less.
You're saying it's bullshit.
I'm saying it's bullshit because there were less than that. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you've sneakily upped the number.
How did he fucking know? How does he know?
Because the thing is insane. I've seen it shoot.
Yeah, no.
It's insane.
It's 12, but
12. You see what I mean?
Okay, you said 8, and I'm impressed by that. You said 8. So they're delivering another 4 in time for Ukraine's next sort of big push or around the time. They're not saying there's been a media silence and all this shit. You know, that's what they are, you know. It's all exciting. Not really because it's war. And they expect then another 4 by the end of the year. So they just expect there'll be 20 doing their thing. But the point is it turned the tide of the war with 12.
You know, like I'm into
12.
Ethical investment, right? So I try to invest in things I believe in.
Like
So if I'm
carrots.
going to buy the shares, I buy in like
Oh,
eco
nice.
companies for like, green energy or whatever. The worst thing you can invest in basically is weapons on that basis, right? But holy shit, at the moment are those guys minting the money, right? Like those guys are making so much cash. Like you just look at how many countries in Eastern Europe are just buying huge amounts of weapons because they're scared of Russia.
Right.
Like I wonder what Vladimir Putin's percentage cut is, because as a sales rep, that guy deserves his bonuses at the end of the year. Like he's sitting in the Boeing head office at the end of the year, sales rep of the year, Vladimir Putin. Everyone's like, Vlad fucking nailed it, man. You crushed this shit. Your wife is going to be so chuffed with your bonus this year.
That's a serious Christmas card he's getting.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly. No, man. It's horrific. Because I think it is. There literally are some stats on the internet that say, and listen, the internet, you'll find stats for anything,
Sure.
but that say that the weapons manufacturer is the biggest single industry in the world. Just startling. Startling, awful.
So well done on working that one out. Yeah, much less needed for the HIMAR, but more coming.
All right, so much cheaper than that. Much cheaper than that. So you're a big Alexander the Great fan.
Oh, love.
So
love
what did Alexander the Great, like? What was he scared of?
What was he scared of?
Yeah, when he faced opposition armies, what was the one thing that he was scared of?
I think it was the Scythian chariot.
It was in fact the elephant. Right.
Oh,
in fact,
yeah.
There's historical evidence that on nights before he was to face elephant, he would make sacrifices to the god of fear. Like was his So the elephant was it was this devastating kind of opponent for the ancient Greeks and Macedonians. But by the time Rome kind of rolled around at the peak of Rome, and here's my fact: the ancient Romans believed elephants were scared of pigs and goats, and so used them successfully against elephants in battle. That's my fact. And I can tell you straight up that any zookeeper you speak to, zookeepers, now's your time to shine, get in the comments, will tell you that elephants are skittish. They are easily frightened.
Yeah,
kind of like, like any intelligent animal is. Humans get scared of stuff because we're smart enough to work out the consequences, right? Elephants are kind of the same. They do get skittish. They are scared.
That is a crazy thought. Okay, so the Carthaginians, they made their way across the Mediterranean with elephant. Was it African or Indian? I don't even know.
African.
It's crazy, eh?
So Carthage is obviously
Tunisia.
Northern Africa. They
Yeah.
used African elephant, and
That's mad.
They landed and then came across the Alps.
So do you think? Well, it depends. Is your fact talking about Hannibal's elephants that they would have tried this on, or is it other regions where Rome
they
was?
didn't only face the Carthaginians with elephants. Elephants became popular because they were devastating, right? They were very difficult to stop. They're effectively tanks, they in that era you were looking at a giant animal whose smell would scare your horses, who could then trample troops. That was, you throw spears at it, you stab it, etc., over and over and over and over again. It would take like a unit of people to bring one of these things down, and there's 30 of them.
And if you piss it off, it's just whoever jumps on is dead.
Whoever's in front of it is just. So they were devastatingly scary. There's a reason Alexander was scared of them. They were not great to face. But as I said, by the time it rolled around to the Romans had worked out that the Romans believed in general that elephants were scared of pigs and goats, and eventually
used them successfully in battle.
Used them successfully in battle against elephants. You're losing it, Ryan. You're losing it.
It's there's the army's approaching, my lord. What should we do? Send in the archers? Cavalry? No. Send in the shepherds.
Yeah.
Shepherds? Yes, leave them.
You got a Welsh dude with a crook. with his dogs chasing these things towards the enemy. Yeah. Devastating Welsh shepherd.
Chris and I laughed, and Wallace and Gromit, remember that?
Yes.
And then the guy was like, I think Chris had woken up with a bit of a hangover, and we turned
Chris Forrest.
Yeah, Chris Forrest. We turned on the telly, and we stayed at his house. Turned on the telly, and his Wallace and Gromit, and then the guy's, come on, then he's got his sheep. Don't be sheepish. And then it was too much for Chris. He just thought it was so you got one of these lads. Come on, don't be sheepish. Run for the elephant. Come on now, come on.
That's right. That's exactly
Send in the
that's what I'm
shepherds.
saying.
I'm saying it's a lot of bullshit, pal. No. Pigs. No. No. I don't think it ever happened in history.
All right. Well, let me tell it to you like this: the first century Roman historian called Pliny the Elder.
Yeah.
You've ever?
Yeah.
We trust Pliny.
Sure.
We like a bit of Pliny. We, Another historian called Claudius Aelianus, who was a 2nd century writer, described that one of the best defenses against elephants was pigs, because their smell made the animals panic, and this in turn meant that the army that had elephants was now in deadly danger because these things would panic and stomp on their own people.
Oh.
The Greek military writer Polynaeus and Aelian reported that Antigonus II Gonatas' siege of Megara in 266 BC was broken when the Megarians, and this is where it differs from where you didn't reach the thinking, right? This is where we start taking this. Megarians doused some pigs with combustible pitch, crude oil, or resin, set them alight, and drove them towards the enemy's massed war elephants. Now, the elephants bolted in terror, obviously, from the flaming, squealing pigs, and killed a bunch of their own people. Anyway,
that's terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
although the smell must have been amazing.
Stop
it, Ryan. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Angie, literally, you just had to bring in the beers, and you've got the ribs already on special. Yeah, according to later accounts by a guy by the name of Gonatas, this Antigonus Gonatas, mahouts started keeping swine with their elephants to accompany their animals to the smell of pigs.
Oh.
And this is one of those things where you kind of say, okay, well, these two writers, they've said that it's true. It must be true, right? We've only got these two historical things. And one of them, he was interested in weird military facts, kind of like this podcast. And then the other one was interested in weird animal facts. So maybe they were just kind of, filling their books with this sort of bullshit. But there's a piece of a thing called as signatum, which is an early kind of money, which is like a bronze bar. That was found in central Italy, which on one side showed an elephant and on the other side showed a pig.
Oh.
And there's some historians who say, oh, that's just artistic humor, showing the relative sizes of these two things on a bar of bronze. But the most historians say it's actually significant because it does represent the authenticity of the encounter that occurred when these things were made. It was to spread the history of that story.
And that group with the M, that tried this.
Megara.
Yeah,
it was a siege of a
they?
city called Megara.
Where's that region?
Ooh, I don't know.
Because you said it's
200
BC.
So that's Greek military writers.
All right. Okay.
So it's in fact the Greeks. But by the time it reached the Romans all understood that pigs and goats were scary to elephants, and to the point that if you kept elephants, you kept pigs with them, and I mean, we've got no 100% proof. We've got these stories that this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes from an era where there was a lot of experimentation in military styles and in military tactics, and there were definitely spiked wagons that people used to try against elephants. They would take a high point, they'd set the spiked wagon on fire, and they'd roll the spiked wagon down towards the elephants, which would scare the elephants, and then the elephants would start running away. So they believe it's historically it's possible that somebody covered these pigs in like tar and set them at the enemy, at least once or twice. And by the time the Romans were around, they were like, oh, definitely goats and pigs terrify elephants,
especially covered in tar and on fire.
Yeah, I mean, basically anything on tar and covered in tar and on fire would scare the shit out of me. You want to take a bunch of clowns, cover them in tar, set them on fire. Firstly, good on you. Secondly, terrifying. Fucking scary.
For me, it would be like Father Christmas is talking in an Afrikaans accent. covered in tar and on fire. Have you been a good boy this year? Come, tell me what do you want for Christmas.
How does your brain work?
That's what I was scared of when I was small.
Oh, it's
Afrikaans
Afrikaans.
Father Christmas.
Yeah, this is deep roots. Deep roots. You know, Ryan, 40 million South Africans at the time were scared of Afrikaans Father Christmas. You weren't alone. Afrikaans Father Christmas was terrifying. But you've been a good boy this year. Yes, you've ruined life for everyone. They're going to go home and dream of Afrikaans Father Christmas on fire.
Yeah, I think there was a word for it. Companies in the old
Afrikaans
days
Father Christmas.
used to have a party for the children.
Yes.
Christmas tree.
Yes, they did. I used to go to.
And then the Vereniging Foundries' Christmas tree. There was a. Go say hello to Father Christmas.
I have come all the way from Finland. I live in an Arctic Circle. Here is my North Pole. Do you want to sit on the North Pole? Jeez.
Shit myself. Yeah. Fuck.
So is that where you met Afrikaans Father? Afrikaans Father Christmas is real. But he cannot hurt you, man. He cannot hurt you anymore.
The days are over.
You're big now. You're big now. You're big now.
I can say no to Afrikaans Father Christmas. Look at you.
That's the laughter of a man who's never been molested.
Sure. Okay. Right. So in medieval times, they used deceased carcasses as weapons. That's my fact.
Deceased carcasses of Afrikaans Father
as
Christmas.
weapons. Yeah.
They did. They used to. Okay. I mean, we can't talk about this until we've dealt with the Father Christmas thing, right? Ryan, let's is there a specific Father Christmas that you remember?
No, there was one. I was at the boss's house. He had a lovely house, his German boss, Wilfred, and then it was the front lawn. And
Did Wilfred speak with a German accent?
Mm.
So he would have been largely perfect to be Father Christmas.
No, it wasn't Wilfred. There was
but what I'm saying is he could have been Father Christmas that year.
Mm-hmm.
Saved the children a lot of scarring.
I wanted an American one. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Just like in the movies.
Okay.
Then it was, have you been a good boy this year? Do you want a toy? Yeah. Then I'd walk back. Don't cry. It's Father Christmas. My older siblings.
Sounds like a very early memory.
What's the matter? I don't know if I articulated. He's Afrikaans. I can tell he sounds like he's from.
He doesn't drink schnapps, he drinks Brannewijn.
He's from Sunland Park. He's not from the North Pole. I don't know. It just fucked my brain up. He's trying hard to disguise. Have you been a good boy?
He didn't even put on an accent like a Norwegian. You want to do that?
No.
Have you been a good boy?
If he was a genuine Norwegian Father Christmas, like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Anyway, okay, all right. We're leaving. All right, we put him in your past. You've dealt with him, right?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Have you spoken to a therapist about Afrikaans Father Christmas?
No, not yet. But there's still time.
But you will now.
Find out if the medical aid sort of covers that sort of.
We'll never hear about Afrikaans Father Christmas on this podcast ever again, will we, Ryan? Certainly not in the Christmas episode this year.
It would be a great horror. Have you been a good boy this year? Afrikaans Father Christmas.
I promise you, most of the country would shit the pants. Knock. Who's coming down your chimney? Hello, it's Father Christmas here.
This is good. I mean, there's been some with our African brothers and sisters. They've gone into their kind of root myths and made horrors. Pinky, and Tokolosh. There's like movies, so fuck, there's a gap there.
Afrikaans Father Christmas. No, I mean, listen, I hear you. Fucking terrifying. Kicking in your door in the middle of the night to take away your dad.
You want me to eat your cookies and drink your milk?
No, Ryan, that's a whole other angle.
Yeah,
That's not a horror movie. That's a whole different kind of movie. Where Afrikaans Father Christmas comes to eat your cookie. Mel Siebrachen is
Oh, he'd be great.
Afrikaans
Oh,
Father
he'd do
Christmas.
such
Yeah.
a good job. Fuck, he'd be great.
Mel Sieb-
We've got to do this, man. We've got to make this movie.
Mel Siebrachen is
Afrikaans
Father
Christmas.
Father Gasfus.
Yeah, Caspia's father is
Yeah.
what they. Yeah.
You'll come to eat your cookie. Anyway, I'm sorry that we've gotten this deep into
Sure.
Afrikaans Father Christmas for anyone who's listening from
Sure.
America, and it makes no sense.
Jeez, shame, man.
So you said, do they fire?
Well, I didn't say.
Oh, no,
fire.
you
I
said- you
just
said
said
they
they used deceased carcasses in warfare.
I don't think they're called
Medieval
carcasses
times.
if they're human, though.
Medieval times.
They used carcasses. They're called corpses if they're human. Carcass is an animal, right?
Well,
Well, they used to use both. They used to take them and put them on catapults and fire them over the walls of besieged cities because the disease would quickly get into the defenders. Much like Afrikaans Father Christmas.
is that
Because-
why? What was it? Quest for the Holy Grail, the famous one with the spit on
Yeah,
you. Yeah,
yeah.
Who was throwing fucking dead things at who?
No, they weren't throwing dead things. They were launching everything on the catapult at the French guy. The French guy was
Including
there.
like fucking.
Yeah, everything, and in the end, and then they had cow fired back on them that landed on. Anyway, yeah, they used to fire like dead bodies into cities because it caused disease. And
How
in
did
fact,
you know that? Okay, you're right. How did
Yeah.
you know?
because my brain is filled with anything that is not useful in a day-to-day life. I barely know how to wipe my ass, but I know how the tax system of ancient Phoenicia worked. You know,
Fuck,
what
we
I mean?
got a mutual friend who loves some weaponry stats, eh? Jeez.
Yeah,
So, why this? I stumbled on this fact rather in a fascinating way. There was an interesting movie called Kingdom of Heaven a few years back, maybe a decade back or
It
so.
was a shit movie. It was a horrible movie.
Well, why you say that because it wasn't historically accurate, or
It was very much not historically accurate, and it had
Second
Orlando
Crusade.
Bloom in it,
Yeah.
who could barely act as the emotionless Legolas. Never mind,
Yeah.
like the lead in a movie.
I like that line at the end. Obviously, Crusade movie, a Siege of Jerusalem or something, and that line at the end where Saladin, I think, is the chap for the Ottoman army. Was it Ottoman back then? I don't know what it was the Muslim
no,
Empire. But then Orlando Bloom's character says, "So what does Jerusalem mean to you?" And he's like, and he's walking away. He goes, "Nothing." And then he walks away and then turns around and goes, "And everything." That was a nice little poetic moment. But there was that movie, serious catapults happening in that movie. Hey, yes, sis.
Mhm.
Great balls of fire. I mean, if you think 11th, 12th century, that is frightening warfare. When
Yeah, but that was all a very over dramatized, like terrible.
some
version of-
dude said no, those catapults weren't even in operation. Then no, he's wrong. Catapults have been going even since BC times, Greek and Roman times. And frightening. And what tickled me pink was that they never like it. It's those balls of fire, and yeah, it's just a dead body.
Yeah, but you wouldn't. I mean, you definitely wouldn't send them over at the same time for one thing.
So,
right?
so you think they do it just
So what it-
strategically? It's not part of the battle. It's like
No,
Oof,
entirely.
my
So it
God.
was a
It's like-
strategic
it's like
decision.
bi-
Once you're besieging a city, right? So you've closed them off.
yeah.
You've stopped them from getting any food, but it's not happening fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So you send over a couple of dead bodies to put disease into the local populace as well.
You know, there's this phrase, chemical warfare or whatever.
Yeah, because
It's
those guys.
that.
Imagine you're trapped in a city. You can't get rid of anything, right? You're there with your rubbish. You're dead. You've got no food coming in.
Mhm.
The more unpleasant you can make that environment for people, the quicker they are likely to give up. So they did. They fired absolutely everything they possibly could. And there's stories of sieges where they would behead the captives and send the heads of the captives over the wall, so that like the families would then have to deal with these heads and anything whatsoever to make life inside the city less pleasant because sometimes the cities were stocked well enough to last years. So they would literally sit for a year, 18 months, 2 years outside the walls of a city, just preventing people from coming and going. Yeah, I mean, so
Wow.
obviously, if you can speed that up, you can get home within the next year. That'd be great. Because also, the longer you sit there, the more likelihood some king is going to raise a defensive army and come and free the city.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, you know. The catapult itself is a pretty crazy structure and very clever structure to launch missiles. You know,
I mean, it's no trebuchet, but
yeah. Oh, that's one of them, eh?
So a
That's lovely.
trebuchet is a different. It uses counterweight to fling things
is
further.
Is it kind of always going in a circle like that? Because that was in Kingdom of Heaven.
No, but it uses a counterweight to basically fling stuff.
I thought the sound design
what a catapult
from Kingdom
does
of
is
Heaven.
it uses tension. So a catapult uses like
like
tension on a rope. Like a cat,
yes.
to fire the thing. And what a trebuchet does is it uses a counterweight to
Okay,
hurl a long arm to fire.
The dude was probably saying that movie had it before its time. When did the trebuchet come out?
Yeah, the trebuchet was a big invention. One of the
because the sound effects from those battle scenes
1200s because I mean I'm guessing now because in Braveheart, King Edward Longshanks.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the great new toys that Edward Longshanks had was a trebuchet. He got one.
Oh.
He had one built, and he took it to the siege of Stirling Castle, and he put it outside Stirling Castle. And Stirling Castle, they eventually they signed over, and they said, they quit, and they signed a treaty, and they said they were all coming out. And he had the trebuchet fire on Stirling Castle anyway, because he was like, I didn't bring this all the way up here just to not use it. Let's shoot it at the castle anyway. So that's so that's what it's saying. So and the reason he had one was because it was this hugely expensive, hugely long-term project to build. It's
like the Enola Gay of its day.
Well, like if you've got one Himar, let's just have it. But that's the kind of person he was as well. It's one of those stories that apocryphal, but also.
I just find that even in olden wars, that kind of frightening missile launching capability was pretty amazing. And then when I saw dead, deceased carcasses or garbage,
I mean, you definitely wouldn't send it over at the time of an actual battle. In fact, you wouldn't be firing on a city at the time of the battle anyway.
It's a siege thing, eh? It's to break down the walls.
So you very slowly. So the first thing you do as a siege is you surround the city, right? You stop anybody coming or going.
Yeah.
Then you send your guys off to go and fell trees, cut wood, etc., and start building your siege weapon. So now they're going to start building. They're going to start building the catapults there, and that's going to take months, weeks, and you're going to finally build some catapults, and then you're going to fire the catapults, and they're going to start breaking down a wall over time, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, you had so much to get past. So let's say you break down the walls. There's also the moat, and then there's the kind of the hill, the bailey up. The sort of the hills up to the. You're in real trouble when you're sieging a city. So the easiest way is just really to sit back and make life unpleasant for the people inside. And the quickest way you can do that is make them all diseased, sick, and hungry.
Crazy. Holy shit, man.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense under that context. Why you would do it during battle is an invention of Hollywood, but yeah.
Love it. Well done. You got that right. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's go with a serious ancient history fact. Okay, so in mythology, the legendary swords Balmung, which was obviously carried by Siegfried, made famous in the Nibelungenlied. Excalibur, which is apparently famously carried by King Arthur, and Durandal, who is carried by Roland, the greatest paladin of Charlemagne, as well as the armor worn by Beowulf, were all crafted by the exact same smith. In history, in the mythologies,
Durandal,
Randall.
Yeah, I was gonna say he wrote the ballad known as hungry like the wolf, but it was Durandal.
Come over there and cut me a piece of steak. That's a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. I can't remember which one. Sean Vivigy will be able to tell me which one. But Randall. No, but Durandal's the name of the sword carried by Roland.
Carried and then carved by the same dude. Okay, so we got a dude in
Belmung, which was carried by Siegfried in the Nibelungenlied. I mean,
so where's Siegfried? Norway.
Siegfried's Germany, Norway.
So German, France, and England, same sword dude.
So what I'm saying is, so there's legendary swords from history.
About 7th century.
Yeah. For a number of centuries, and according to and Beowulf, which obviously is the oldest story told by like in the English language. So and the armor crafted by Beowulf were all, according to the mythologies, crafted by the same smith.
All right. Was it the magician? Melvin. What's his name? Mervyn.
Melvin? Melvin? I'm just going to leave that. You know what? I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen. I'm just going to close my eyes and pretend the last two. Mervyn. Mervyn, the famous magician.
Yeah,
Mervyn the magician performed at your fucking kid's Christmas party. Mervyn the magician pulled his cock out of his pants. That's what Mervyn the magician did. Hey kids, you ever seen a white snake? That's Mervyn the magician.
Look what Father Christmas brought for you this year.
Father Christmas, send me the naughty kids round the back of the Portaloos. Tell me the kids who deserve to get their sack full of gold. Mervyn the magician. Anyway.
All right. Well, according to the myth, same oak. Yeah, I like this fact. It's you talking myth and the dudes. Yeah, Beowulf, Arthur, French dude, German dude,
and Mervyn the magician.
Yeah, same swords, dude. Same dude who hammers shit.
I'd say
Smith. Same Smith. Sam Smith.
Yeah, Sam Smith. Yeah, it's not Sam Smith the musician either. Sam Smith the musician or Mervyn the magician. It's neither of those two people. Fuck, Ryan. I mean, really? Okay. People are going to unsubscribe from this podcast. They're going to start doubting your ability to know a damn fucking thing.
My word. Okay, no. Perfectly fine with that fact. I think it's a lovely mythological linkage, a bit of a unity in the whole narratives. Maybe a common source. Love it. I'm going to say you're telling the truth.
You can ask questions.
Do you know, like, eras? Beowulf, like, do you know more or less the eras? I know Arthur's like 700, eh?
It's all pre-Christianity stuff.
Arthur? Yeah.
Yeah, all of this is pre-Christianity stuff. So, you're talking...
Oh, was it, eh? So it's okay. So maybe if it's just a Roman... So maybe early, or maybe even BC-ish. Yeah, Beowulf is definitely even...
Yeah, this is kind of post-Roman, the height of the Roman Empire.
Yes.
Okay.
So then,
domination
I'm happy to go with the fact that it's like, when a fairy tale has a different version in a different country. Yeah, so I'm happy to go with that. And then there was a person, the person who would hammer the sword. Yeah.
Hammer the sword.
Yeah.
The Smith.
The Smiths.
All right, good.
There was also a band in the 80s. Yeah,
yeah they were. Yeah.
I'm going to say your fact is true. I just like it. I like it.
The fact is true.
Nice.
The fact is true. It's about a legendary blacksmith by the name of Wayland the Smith.
Wayland.
Yeah, he's got different names in folklore of the era. In French, he's Galant. In German, he's Vaillant. In Norse mythology, the smith is called Volant.
Okay, but this is the same name.
Yeah, but essentially he appears in all of the mythologies, and his name is now all over Northern Europe and England. Obviously, England at the time was Anglo-Saxon. Effectively, before Christianity, Wayland was functionally he was a demigod. He was the closest the Germanic and Anglo-Saxon mythology had to like a god of smithing. No, not like Morrissey, like like to making weaponry. You can see his legend is depicted in a lot of stuff, like the Ardra image stone, the 8th, and probably on the 10th century copper mount found in Upkara in 2011. There's a number of visual representations of him throughout Scandinavia and Northern Europe. The most famous picture of him from Anglo-Saxon time is from the Franks casket, which you can see in the British Museum, along with every other icon of civilization from around the world. There's a famous English landmark named after him, and also he appears in like English folklore. He's usually shown as like a bearded man with like a broken leg. I mean, this is hilarious. I mean, not Afrikaans Santa. Is that what you? As soon as I said bearded man, you were like, I shit my pants. No, not Afrikaans Santa.
And 6 reindeers.
No. He's a bearded man with a broken leg, which actually is interesting because it links him to Vulcan, which was the Roman god of the forge, who was obviously like quite a canny, clever character who had a broken, twisted leg from his fall from Mount Olympus. So there's this kind of morphing of the character into Valand. And then in a lot of the stories, he's the guy that makes the weapon that the hero lands up using throughout Northern Europe. And whilst he's not expressly said to make Excalibur, and this is where Dietz can decide whether we're Ryaning the situation because it's not expressly said that he's made Excalibur, but because Excalibur has so many connections, the King Arthur stories has so many connections with Balmung and the Siegfried saga, you could almost say that there's sort of an anglicization of that original saga. So it's possible that he could have been considered as the maker of Excalibur, but it's never expressly mentioned. So that's where I could have I could have ryaned you on this. Sure. Yeah. Anyway, he's normally depicted as being human, but in some of the stories, he's in the Volundvar. I don't know how to say this. Volundarkvidde. Is that Volundarkvidde? And they call him the ruler of the elves, while his father in Didrik's saga is a giant. Yeah, this is who he is. I don't think this is too terrible a Norwegian accent. Well, yeah, his story is most clearly told in the Old Norse saga, the Volundvarkvidde. In his, I'm not going to do the whole accent for the whole time. Yeah, King Nudud of Sweden basically hears about Valand, and he decides he wants this dude working for him, like exclusively making weapons for him. So he lures Valand to his court and says, "You can marry my daughter and you'll become a prince." And then when Valand shows up, he captures him and chains him up and sends him to a faraway island and says, "You've got to make all the weapons for me." And Valand has to do this until the 2 sons decide they're going to go and visit him and taunt him. And when they do that, he captures them, kills them, turns them into goblets, like bejeweled goblets, their skulls into bejeweled goblets that he sends back to their father. And the father, drinks out of the goblets and wonders what happens to his sons. So he starts this nationwide search for his sons, and the daughter goes to visit Valand because she tracks the sons all the way to Valand, and she goes there and says, "Hey, what's up with my brother's going missing?" And then he rapes her and impregnates her.
Whoa.
And then she goes back to her father and she's pregnant, and he invents these wings with which he can fly, lift himself off the island, and he goes and he taunts the king and he flies away. And in Anglo-Saxon mythology, where he flies away to is England, and he lands in England, and that's where the story kind of picks up again.
My word.
Yeah, when they say that, no, he's there, and there's all these places that are named after him, and in fact, there's a there's a place in Berkshire Downs, right near. I mean, I don't know if you know where the horse is, the chalk kind of horse. Anyway, it's a place that to this day is known as Wayland's Smithy. It's a mound that clearly is where ancient rulers had been buried, and vastly predates even this mythology. But the story says that if you take a horse there and you leave it there overnight and you don't look, because if you look, you ruin the magic. Valand will shoe your horse overnight. You have to leave him a silver coin and he'll shoe your horse. So that's still a myth there to this day. But what's so nice about it is that obviously these stories have all kind of connected to one another. As I said, like Valand supposedly made Balmung and etc. But it goes even older than that, right? So because there's a story of Odin taking Siegfried's sword Balmung and embedding it in an oak tree, and he says, "Whoever can draw this oak will be the next like hero." And then the 8 oldest sons of the king come and try and pull it out, and it's the youngest son who manages to pull it out. And of course, that connects to the story of Excalibur, which the sword gets plunged into the stone, and then whoever can pull this can be king of England. And then there's a bit where Siegfried is traveling across the river to go and slay a dragon, and he gets picked up in white mist by an archaic ship that moves without wind, and an old man takes him away. And that obviously links to the story of Arthur. And at the end, when Arthur's dead, he gets picked up by a ship in white mist that takes him without wind to the island of Avalon, where he's supposedly waiting. So there's all these kind of connections between these stories.
Man, I love it.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Durendal, right? So Durendal's a little bit different, right? So it was carried by Roland, the paladin of Charlemagne, and it was used apparently in a battle in 778. And to this day, you can actually go to the armory in Madrid where they will show you the sword Durendal.
Jeez.
It's unlike Excalibur or Balmung in that you can literally go and see it. But yeah, Valand was supposed to have made that. And then in the poem, Beowulf, lines 450 to 455, he says, "No need then to lament for long or lay out my body. If the battle takes me, send back this breast webbing that Wayland fashioned, and Hrethel gave me to Lord Hygelac. Fate goes ever as fate must." So that's in Beowulf. Yeah. So indeed, that same character did make all of those things technically, unless I'm going to Ryan you and say they didn't really make Excalibur, but I think he made Excalibur. He made Excalibur.
Like
I'm going to give you the point. I'm going to give you the point. He was involved in all that shit.
Shucks, man. Yeah. And that's that's funny. That story of the 7 sons, and then he chose the youngest one. That's got like echoes in Old Testament with King David being the shepherd boy, Samuel trying to choose the next king of Israel, and Nathan's sons, and he's like, no, not this one, not this one. Are there any more? No, there's my little son. He's a shepherd boy. Bring him here. That's the one.
I mean,
this mythology
these stories,
is fascinating.
There is no doubt that these stories slowly, sort of morphed over the time and became the different things. As I said, there's Roman mythology in these stories, but themselves. But I mean, it's not strictly a weapons story. Swords are weapons. Swords are swords. Yeah.
It's wonderful. And you say Madrid's got the one. Toledo is always the region for the best swords in the medieval times.
Yeah.
Silver.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. My next fact, let's stay in the British Isles for a little bit. And let me tell you that I'm quite fascinated by the bayonets, which was first used
Beowulf.
In a
this is working.
That was the net that they caught the Beowulf in.
I bless you for trying. Bless you for trying, Ryan. Like and subscribe.
And it was first successfully used by the Scottish in a battle against the British. The bayonet. I'll even tell you. Was in the
like
1700
that you attach
17th century
that you attach on the end of your gun.
Yes. 17th century.
I'm wondering whether maybe you're getting a little bit technical and funny on me here. Like, did the term bayonet, which sounds like a French word, to be perfectly honest, did it always mean the knife that you attach on the end of your gun, or did it mean something before that? Because as I say, it's a French word. It doesn't sound very Scottish. If it was first used in Scotland, you would think they would have a name like McStrudel. I'll run him through with my McStrudel.
The fucking gun went here fire, so I put the strudel on the end of the.
Aye, I stabbed him right in his gut with a McStrudel. Aye, he'll never not pay for his pint again. Like, very fancy. No, to be honest, so the Scottish were historically always allied with the French because obviously they hated the English, and the English were through the 100 Years' War constantly at war in France, taking French lands. They were constantly at war in Scotland, taking Scottish lands.
Yeah, and there's the Mary Queen of Scots connection because she was actually French, wasn't she?
There's a lot of
there's
history
even
between the two. Yeah,
the old Freemason story has strong ties to Scotland and France actually.
So King Henry VIII, for instance, there was a woman he really wanted to marry who landed up being promised she was very young but also quite weak and sick, and she landed up being promised to the Scottish king, and I can't remember the whole story, but she basically died shortly after she landed in Scotland after marrying the Scottish king. But so there's these kind of funny intrigues between Scotland and France were very strong allies, whereas England kind of stood alone. Everybody hated them because England, it's kind of like cricket these days. Everybody hates them because England. So it's possible that French technology made its way over to Scotland, and that Scotland were the first people who used it. Possibly. I mean, when were you saying? What was the year?
Late 1600s, 1689.
Okay. I mean, late 1600s. I don't think a hell of a lot was going on in Scotland late 1600s. I seem to remember you've got the uprising of the Stuart kings in the 1700s, Bonnie Prince Charlie and all of this thing. Where would the Scottish have an opportunity? I mean, the Scottish were constantly causing shit with the English, so it's possible they were using French technology. I'm gonna give you that, but
first use in battle.
First use of a bayonet in battle. They certainly had guns around the late 1600s. Definitely. Certainly one shot, and then you had to do something else with your gun. I mean, I know for a long period, even in America during the kind of the wars for independence against England, most of what they did with it was turn the gun around and use it like a club. So a bayonet wasn't that common. That's not to say that it wasn't used ineffectually. Before it was eventually perfected. Was it the Scots, though? Was it the Scots? That's the question I'm asking myself. I mean, the Scots are responsible for a number of good inventions. Penicillin.
Oh, nice.
Wellington boots. Alexander Graham Bell.
Yeah, another lovely scientist, the one with the gases, Boyle.
Yes, that's
Scotsman.
Right, Scotsman. Right. Aye.
Aye, look at you, Boyle. Yeah, you're one of us, eh?
You've got the right sort of an era, but maybe I would have thought to myself that it was a French-Italian, somewhere around there kind of conflict. All right, listen, there's more chance. Given the history of this fucking podcast, there's more chance that you're lying to me than that you're telling the truth. What if I threaten you with Afrikaans Santa? Will you leak more facts? No, I'm going to say it's a lie. It's a lie. It's a nonsense story.
It's an interesting psychobabble way of you figuring that one out. It's a Ryanism lie, and so you're right to get you correct on there that it is a lie, because the date was correct. It's Scotland, 1689, at the Battle of Killiecrankie. Does this ring a bell? Didn't ring a bell for me. Saw the first recorded use of the bayonet. 2,500 Jacobites, those were the Scottish, faced off against 4,000 men loyal to the British government. After waiting for the sun to set, the Jacobites charged down from their strong point atop a hill. With the government men unsure of their new bayonets, the Jacobites' speedy charge meant the battle lasted less than 30 minutes. So it was
Essentially, what I
Shoot.
got wrong.
Pop on.
Essentially, what I got
It
wrong
was the wrong people.
was
Yeah.
I thought no. I thought the Jacobite rebellion was 1700s, whereas you're saying it's 1689.
1689.
So it's the Jacobite rebellion is the Stuart King rebellion. It's the rebellion to try and put the Stuart kings back on the thrones of Scotland. So I didn't realize it was late 1600s is where I've messed up.
Yeah, and the bayonet has been fascinating to me because the first ever bayonets was a sort of clip-on thing, so you couldn't fire the gun once you've decided to go bayonets. It almost plugged in. It was a plug-in. But it tended to become very, very much part of British military kind of stuff. I know at the Battle of Blouberg, it was artillery, and then when that's a charge, and then a lot of the hacking, a lot of the major killing was done bayonet on bayonet.
Yeah, you've only got one shot, and you've got one awkward, not straight shot because they hadn't invented barrel rifling yet.
Yeah.
So you've got one shot kind of in the general. As I say, what I messed up, because here's the thing: the Jacobite rebellion was the Stuart kings against the English to try and. Because the Stuart kings were King James I kind of onward.
Yes.
And then they installed, I thought it was much later. They installed the Georgian kings. King George, and another King George. And then this meant that the Stuarts had been overthrown. So the Stuarts, who'd long been allies with France, decided to try and overthrow the English government, and they failed. So they had a number of uprisings, Bonnie, Prince Charlie, etc., etc. So I'm not surprised. Bayonet, as I said,
look, it French, is a town in France.
As I said, French technology.
Yeah,
it makes sense that it's in Scotland. I just messed up the dates of the actual
and
the uprising.
It was the British, the army loyalty to the British that had the bayonets. Yeah, and I after watching the series, I won't tell you what I did because it's coming up in my next fact.
Your next fact is about wanking.
A certain military chap in our neck of the woods. But that made me want to watch the famous movie with introducing Michael Caine.
You're going to talk about Shaka, aren't you?
Yeah.
As soon as you say Michael Caine, it's either Zulus or they blew the bloody doors off, and I'm pretty sure that they blew the bloody doors off,
and of course they defended that little mission station in the movie Zulu with Michael Caine.
Okay, but we were not there yet.
No. There's fun to go here now because my next fact's about something else. But it was bayonet stuff, and it's and then it went from the plug-in to you can use both fire and then when it gets very close, bayonet yourself. But a ruthless little weapon,
Bayonet yourself. If it's $9.99, you can bayonet yourself.
Yeah, and it was one of the wars of independence in the US, the military wars, where
there was only one.
The one side had, but then during the kind of whole war, the other side acquired, and then it became fucking bayonet on bayonet action, man. You see,
bayonet on bayonet action is extremely popular on the internet today. I'll tell you what, it's not all about the bayonet and wound action.
Yeah, and at the Battle of Blouberg, all the heavy killing
becoming a thing you talk about quite a lot on this podcast. Yeah.
I went on a tour. All the heavy killing was bayonet on bayonet action, man. Yeah.
Well, that's what I like to look at. Anyway, my next fact is very much about weapons, and I'm going to argue with anyone that says that it's not. You may have heard of a band called Guns N' Roses.
Yes.
Hey?
You sweet child of mine. Guns N' Roses.
Guns?
This is your...
Yeah, this is how I'm going to link this to this weapons podcast. Guns N' Roses. The band Guns N' Roses only had one number one on the Hot 100. That's my fact. That's my fact.
Well. Hot 100. So I'm in the
to talk about weapons, guns.
I love it when sneak in 80s music. I love it. Man. Well, yeah. So I was a little kid when I heard Welcome to the Jungle, and it was flippin' cool. Sweet Child of Mine was huge. Then there was November Rain, and then there was their version of
November Rain's considered the song they sold out on.
Is this?
Yeah, it's in the Use Your Illusion.
They went a bit soft cock.
That was the phrase we used to use in the 90s.
Soft cock rock.
Oh, fucking soft cock. Fucking Def Leppard, eh? Fucking that soft cock rock. We used to use it all the time. Like it meant anything. I mean, honestly, like these days, people are looking back at System of a Down and calling that dad rock. You know what I mean?
I wonder if you're telling the truth, and if you are, it might be Sweet Child of Mine. I think Welcome to the Jungle was too hardcore to be number one. November Rain could have been number one, and their version of Knocking on Heaven's Door could have been number one. So it would surprise me. Maybe they had more than one number one, but maybe they didn't because there were two.
They only had one. Just one. That's what I'm saying. Just one.
And that's your fact.
That's my fact.
Shoo. Don't know what to. Don't know. Wait, what's it? No, I'm thinking of How Dare I. That's those oaks from Los Angeles, the oak with a lisp.
Oh yeah, that oak.
Take me to the place I love.
Right. No, don't. Yeah,
that's the other dudes. What are they called?
The kind of sweet Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah. Okay, which one went number one? Sweet Child of Mine went number one, and the others didn't quite make it. Not even Knocking on Heaven's Door. Not even Cold November Rain. Or as it's known to the rest of the universe, November Rain. In the cold November rain. Lots of violin strings. Beautiful. Sold out. Go all fucking orchestral on us. No. Yes. You're telling
interestingly, as an aside, do you know that was the longest single ever to chart on the top 100? November Rain.
Really?
Until recently, Taylor Swift re-released one of her songs, and I can't remember the name because Swifties, please fucking kill me on that. But she re-released one of her songs. She released a longer version of one of her songs that people had been demanding for ages that she'd played live, but she'd never released, and she finally released it, and it became the longest.
All right.
So, but November Rain was the second longest because it's 9 minutes long.
November Rain.
Yeah, 9 minutes. Yeah.
Yikes. Oh, but it's a long stringed intro. Okay,
apparently it was almost twice as long because so Axl Rose wrote it in like 1981, and then he started paring it down and changing it and adjusting it. By the time they released it, it was only 9 minutes long, but only was still good enough for the longest song on the Billboard Hot 100 ever until Taylor Swift now recently.
Wow. I'm going to say you're telling the truth, and I'm even going to say I think it's Sweet Child of Mine. That's my answer.
Right. I'm almost prepared to give you 2 points for this. Almost. Because I still want to win. but you're 100% correct.
Okay.
It is true, and it is Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah,
it's the number one.
Yeah.
Like, congratulations. Appetite for Destruction itself as an album reached Billboard Top 100 number one, as an album, right? But in terms of their songs, only Sweet Child of Mine reached number one. So Appetite for Destruction sold more than 30 million copies worldwide. It became the number one album. It's the best-selling debut album of all time in the United States with 18 million units sold. But only one song reached the peak, and that is Sweet Child of Mine.
That's a wonderful fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's sneaking a bit of 80s music.
Here's a little bit of an add-on. Slash considers it their worst song of all time. Axl Rose said it was the first positive love song he'd ever written. And because of its song's sentimental nature, when Axl Rose pitched it, Duff McKagan thought it was a joke.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I love that fact. Yeah. I love that. You didn't perhaps get it from Professor of Rock. Did you watch The Professor?
No, I did not. No, it just happens to be a thing. My mate Justin is a massive Guns N' Roses fan who listens to the podcast. So I thought I would give him one. I thought I'd throw him one.
So nice.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Sweet Child of Mine, someone who killed his sweet child.
was Afrikaans Santa Claus. That motherfucker deserves his reputation.
No, according to the TV show Shaka Zulu, he did. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But
Oh yeah, so we are talking about.
I was enamored by the series, and I'm very grateful to Netflix for putting it on Netflix. And I watched it again. I watched it in 2.5 days. It was wonderful. It's aged well. Did you watch it when you were a kid?
Oh, the TV show? Has it? No, I watched some of the episodes when I was a kid, but I wasn't allowed to stay up that late generally. I normally had to be in bed by 7
My
o'clock.
other friend said the same thing. I don't know what was wrong with my...
Your
I said,
mother didn't care about you.
No,
Right?
do you know what it was? It was probably on a Thursday, which was ladies' night in Vereeniging. And so she, my put babysat. And so he's like, yo, come watch Chocolate City.
So I remember my life like that, right? Like 18 was 7 to 8. Ewo 7 to 8. And those nights, my parents would let me and my brother stay up until 8
It was
o'clock.
intended for that, yeah. That was the kind of
but our
prime
bedtime
time.
was normally 7 o'clock, which when I'm a parent now, like I look back at it, it's cold.
That's hectic.
7
man.
o'clock, you're going to put your kid in bed by 7 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. That's what
Yeah.
time my son goes to bed at 8. I read him a story still. He falls asleep like 8:30. Right?
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. So when I look at this thing and I'm like, oh, I couldn't watch the TV shows. Magnum PI. I could never see Magnum PI.
It was
You
a
know why?
Saturday night.
9 o'clock.
Yeah.
9 o'clock
It
at
was a
night.
Saturday.
I could never see Magnum. I was
Yeah.
never going to be allowed to do that. It's ridiculous.
I remember watching it, but falling asleep during it every
Oh,
time.
you see.
It was a Saturday night.
But you were also like a year older than me, which is
Dun,
maybe a critical year.
dun, dun, dun,
Critical
with his
year.
fucking Ferrari or Lamborghini.
Also, your parents didn't care because
That's
they let
also-
you go to bed at whatever time you like. They let you watch Shaka Zulu until god awful
Ooh, I did,
hours of the
eh?
night.
Ooh,
Yeah.
God, I never missed it. Watched it again. And as you know, it's quite the legend, but it is my fact that Shaka is credited by historians for inventing the iklwa, the short stabbing spear. Simple fact, short fact, and that is where we'll leave it. You can tell me what you think about that. But the whole
I
thing.
mean, he definitely invented it in this part of the world. Whether he invented it like globally, I don't know. But in South Africa, it was the main thing. Was they would get in close, be able to stab the guys, and then because everybody else had really long spears. And you know, history. This is
I am so torn morally about that splendid legend called Shaka. I am.
I don't want to talk
torn into-
about. I don't want to talk about your orgasms around Afrikaans Santa. And Shaka Zulu. I want to talk quite specifically about what history is. Generally, it's a race of one type of weaponry developing against another. So what would happen is one civilization would develop heavy infantry, and they would be covered in armor, and they would get in close and they'd stab people. And then they were beaten by the guys who are on horseback with the light crossbows. And then they would circle those guys and kill them. And then those guys would have to invent a way to defeat the fast guys on horseback. So then they would have to, invent a thing to shoot the fast guys on horseback.
Yeah.
So it's this constant evolution of warfare. And it tends to go between three things: heavily armored, fast and lightly, fast with light weapons, and then some kind of medium capable of handling both threats, and then heavily armored, and then and it just rolls through history like that. So whether Shaka was the guy who invented the short spear globally, or whether he was the guy who invented it in this area, he was definitely. I mean, the Ascar hacking it in half, turning it into a thing where you use a big shield, you get in close, and you stab the guys, and then meanwhile other guys are coming from behind. Devastating, brilliant military tactician.
Sure.
Changes war in the area. Definitely did it. Was he the guy who invented it globally? Is that what you're asking?
This short stabbing spear specifically.
You're saying globally.
No, I'm not. I'll even say regionally.
Okay. Oh well, then yes, he did. I'm going to say. I mean,
The
otherwise he beat a small tribe that already had this, and he took it from them. But he was the first to popularize it. You know what I mean? Like, he was the first guy.
Boy, did he nail it, hey?
Yeah. Hey, like the Roman legionnaires at Calvary,
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
Calvary or is it Calgary?
When you talk about like
Calgary is in
upping your
Canada.
enemy, hey, before Alexander went on his great campaign, there was the Greek city-states sort of fighting each other. Thessaly
That's
is
right.
one of them, and Athens was another one.
Sparta.
Yeah. And the one, it was possibly Thessaly. They had a pretty crazy, scary new way of doing war, which was the long spear, but it's very long spear and very sharp, obviously, at the end. And they'd all have one, and they'd all aim it forward and charge at you. And it was like being charged by a very fast porcupine.
It's the hoplite.
It's like a porcupine coming at you.
Yeah, because you had the huge shield, very long spear. It's the hoplite Greek like system. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck. What do you do? What do you do? You run.
What you do is at night while they're sleeping, you sneak into their camp with little short stabby spears and you stab them. And that's exactly what Shaka Zulu did.
Yeah. So
He wasn't called Shaka Zulu. He wasn't called Shaka Zulu, was he?
Well, I love the story very much, and I love South African history very much, and all of that stuff. But let me tell you that the historians are starting to think that the TV show is based on the writings of two people who were opportunists, two Europeans who met with him and documented stuff. And a lot of legend is developed about him having this moment where he's frustrated and he just breaks it in half, and then he gives it a go, and then he goes to the forgery himself, and it's a weird mystical spiritual space because there's a lot of witch doctors, and they are small people, little people. A lot of those vibes, and it's a weird mystical spiritual village, and he goes there, and the main witch doctor in the TV show, who is written about by one of the European historians. So the fact that is even remotely true is frightening. Anyway, was there overseeing this, and it was like, this is the moment of destiny. That the spear, it's a bit Arthur and Excalibur-ish, except he didn't pull it out of a rock. He had this idea, and he
is this the way the story's
told? He gave his briefs to the agency.
This is the history of it.
He said, I wanted like this, and I wanted like this, and make me a spear. And he did. And then the Sangoma.
But no. But the question is, was there a mythological element to it, or was it really?
How do we know? There's two ways of. Well, there's two ways we don't know. But here's interesting things to ponder. The one is the Europeans who wrote it. Then, as history's unfolded, their motives were questioned and re-looked at, and the actual writings.
So they wrote it that it was a mythological thing.
No, they wrote it that it was what they believed took place. Because by the time they met Shaka, he was already huge. He was king of the Zulu Empire.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
And then, but the songs of the Zulu people about the spear and all of that stuff, they've kind of carried on. So do you know or don't you know? But now the historians think that they had a formidable foe in the north called Zwidi and his paramountcy, and Shaka fought for Dingiswayo, which was the Mtetwa paramountcy, a little bit south of Zwedi's, all part of modern day KZN, but the north of KZN. And they think Zwede was using the short stabbing spear.
No, we could say Zwede, like the English, but we say Zwede.
And they think that Shark actually got it from wars with those oaks, and he brought it into his paramountcy. And then, there's where I'm a bit torn historically about was he a great legend, or was he a bit of a
no? He must have been a legend, right?
Yeah. Because the warfare wasn't a very big killing thing. It was a bit of a sports game on a Saturday afternoon. It was like, you made my daughter pregnant. You did it. No, we didn't. No, your son did it. No. Well, I'll see you on Saturday afternoon. And then they get together and the whole tribe is there singing songs, and then the royal are sitting with special seats, and then they sing songs and they taunt each other, and there's war cries. Then they throw the throwing spear, and they block it, and they throw the flying spear, and then someone runs out and they moor him with a knopkiri, and he runs back and he's a bit sore.
Yeah.
And then okay, whoa. Right, you win. Sorry, there's 10 cattle. And that was warfare. And Shark was
so you're saying that they'd reduced war to kind of the way we've reduced court like judicial process.
Yeah, and
Because
it
I
was-
mean, if effectively our judicial process is a replacement for war.
Yeah.
We go to court so we don't have
His
to
side,
fucking
his
kill each
side,
other's
yes.
family. Yeah, we don't have to
Yeah.
like. So what you're saying is
So Shaka
the-
came
the-
in and said, fuck
that
this.
Southern Africa had already reached a point of civilization where they'd reduced all war to a court process. And then Shaka went, oh yeah, well, fuck it, like let's go,
fucking break this thing.
yeah,
If you block him with that spear and your fuck is there, then he's dead. Kill them all and we'll take their tribe. And
I see, okay.
And so he brought in
He
a
cheated
real
the game a little bit,
bloodthirsty
yeah.
element, and then he became the boss of everything.
I mean, listen. I feel like it's too one-dimensional to assume that something works in one way and it doesn't work in another. Humanity's never been that black and white. There's almost certainly there was always war, there was always fighting, there was always some kind of like real. We may have had a showpiece, but behind the scenes somebody got his ass kicked. Like somewhere behind the scenes.
But if you think about what he definitely did do to unite this kind of Zulu thing, there was a Mafakane, which if it was caused by Shaka, who knows what that was, a lot of people were killed and then fled. There was that vibe.
Yes.
And then, of course, there was the defeat 50 years later by the Zulu people, Shaka long gone, at Isandlwana, who was the biggest loss that Britain suffered in Southern Africa in a war. And that was because of the mighty Zulu MP. And by then they were feared and a formidable military might. And today, even the Zulu people taken very seriously. They're a proud people. And Shaka was their founder, if you like. But man, oh man.
I've got
I would have preferred the Saturday afternoon
If
sport.
you haven't seen the comedy of Loisa Madinga, you need to do it.
Yes.
He's got a very funny part
great.
where he talks about, because he's Xhosa. So he says, we as Xhosa had no place to be fighting the invader. Like we're 5'5", and these guys are like 6'5", and they've got guns. We're 5'5" with spears. It's a very funny bit. But like this is South African history gets made in this kind of bizarre compromise of weapons versus people. And that's what it always is. That's what war always is. And we look at weapons and we want to do facts about weapons, but actually what it's about is the people and what they're prepared to do to each other. Because ultimately, the most startling fact I've ever heard, and this is very relevant to this particular podcast, is that in World War II, 90% of people never fired their weapon. 8% of them fired their weapon, but fired it upward away from the enemy, and only 2% fired it at the enemy. Which means that we as humans are generally good people who don't want to hurt each other.
Yeah,
and it puts into stark contrast something like the Medal of Honor winner. Where they write him as a hero. They're like, oh, this guy, he slew 200 people. He was a Medal of Honor winner. What a hero. No, what he was the one guy who was prepared to kill other people in a whole room of people who just didn't want to fight. And that's what's so tragic about any kind of war, is that most of us don't want to fight. We don't want to use these weapons. We don't want to shoot at each other. We don't want to like kill each other. We just want peace. And even faced with another human being, there was an interview with a German soldier. He's like 89, and they're talking to him about his war experience. He said, I killed one person in war. So it was a Frenchman. He came into our change. He was going to kill me. I stabbed him, and I watched him die in front of me, and it's haunted me every night since then for 60 years.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're like, that is the majority of people. That's this thing about talking about like weapons and what's gonna kill people and what we don't want to kill. Like most of us don't want to kill each other. It's not heroic to kill another person with a weapon. It isn't. It's sad and it's gross, and we unfortunately have made it the majority of our history.
Yeah,
It's such a fuck up.
It does give you sort of faith in the goodness of humanity, though.
The vast majority of people are good. I mean, all the stats prove it. The vast majority of people are good and care about other people. This weapons thing is fucked. It's fucked up. Anyway, let me jump to my multiple choice.
Oh, multiple choice.
Which of these is not a real World War II weapon? Right? Number 1. I'm going to do it in the accent I wish you to picture it in. Number 1 is called the Gustav gun. It is a 4-story high, 50-meter long gun what weigh 1.350 tons, 1,350 tons. Number 2. Also German, it is called the Krummlauf. It is a gun what is bending in the barrel so you can shoot people around the corner. Number 3 is the Buckingham tank. The Buckingham tank is 1 meter high disc-shaped tank designed to drive under the fire of other traditional tanks. The number 4 is the Habakkuk. The Habakkuk is a Canadian ship made from a combination of pulp wood and ice.
I mean, all of these are absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're saying only one of them
Only
isn't.
one of them isn't. Yeah.
They're all ridiculous.
Yeah. Can I read?
Absolutely
I will read them for you again.
ridiculous.
Number 1 is the Gustav gun. 4 stories high, 50 meters long. It weighs 1,350 tons. Number 2. The Krummlauf, a gun with a bent barrel for shooting around the corners. Now, number 3, fellow, is called the Buckingham tank. It's a 1 meter high disc-shaped tank. It's designed to drive under the fire of traditional tanks. And number 4 is the Habakkuk. It's a ship made with a combination of pulp wood and ice.
You see, I hear one, I go, that's definitely bullshit. That's the one. Then I hear the next one. No, that's definitely bullshit. Then I hear the next one. No, that's different. They're all bullshit. And only one of them is
Only
bullshit.
one of them is bullshit, yeah.
That's
Only one of them is
The
total
dimension
bullshit.
of that first gun is fucking huge.
Yeah. It's
fucking stupid huge.
Yeah, the Gustav gun. This is what it is called in my official list.
It's fucking crazy. All right, then the gun around the corner. That might be.
Yeah,
that.
the Krummlauf.
You might have actually made that up.
Yeah, the Krummlauf has a
lot
gun
of-
with a bent barrel for shooting around the corners.
Okay, but then the other one, a meter high tank. Are you kidding
Yes,
me?
The
How are you
Buckingham.
gonna?
The Buckingham tank is 1 meter high.
How
It
do
is
you drive
disc-shaped.
it?
Disc-shaped.
You must lie
And
down
it's
and
designed to
drive
drive under the traditional fire of normal tanks.
it. I mean, okay. Question is, these were actual weapons. Were they actually used in it, or not necessarily used, or there are weapons? Were they designed? Were they actually manufactured?
So all of them were developed in the
Developed,
war.
okay,
They were
good-
developed for
good
use.
phrase,
Yeah, all of
okay.
them. I mean, all of them except one was
Okay, yeah.
developed for use in the war.
And then
yeah.
pulp, wood, and ice. A fucking ship. Yeah, but what? Why? Fucking why? A ship made of ice. A ship made of ice. And pulp wood
Yeah. To
As a
further
weapon.
that one,
as a weapon.
the pulp wood is only 10% of the whole thing. Like most of it is ice. Yeah. 10 to 20%, depending on 10 to 20%.
Depending on whether you're talking cock or not. It's like they're all so ridiculous. I don't know what to say. But I think the one where you might have made a simplistic faux pas, because I don't think a gun can shoot around the corner. I'm gonna say that's your bullshit story. The rest
can-
are equally ridiculous.
You can
but
ask questions, right? You can ask questions. I'm saying that every time you question me because I don't want Michelle picking up on my tells. This is what I don't want.
all right, so this ship, like you say, is a weapon. Okay, maybe it was just there's no.
Do you want me to
peop-
do it again?
There's
I'll
no.
do it.
pe- No, I got it. There's no people. You just put the motors on and crash it in like a kamikaze. No people on their
You see.
weapon. Ice.
see.
Bash it into them.
Quite clever.
Maybe.
Quite clever
Okay.
thinking
When they
there.
shoot around the corner, that's just.
The
I'm probably gonna-
Krummlauf.
I'm gonna.
The
But this
Krummlauf.
gun is too fucking huge. One gun that big. What for? What for? What on earth is your gun so tall for and so long? 50 meters long, 4 stories high, a gun. You see how ridiculous this is?
I know, I love it. I love it.
And then the shoots around the
It's
corner,
absolutely
gun,
real.
and that fucking tank where you can't actually, you have to lie down to drive it. Oh, fuck, man. Okay, no, the shoots around the corner gun is just fucking, stop it. No, that's the one. That's the one that doesn't exist.
All right, so let's start. Let's start at the beginning. The Gustav gun, a 4-story high, 50-meter long gun which weighs 1,350 tons. It was designed to shoot through the Maginot Line.
Oh.
It shot a 10,000-pound shell from a mammoth 30-meter long barrel. The size was not only its strength, but also its downfall. The huge gun can only be transported on rail, which meant that the Allies could easily stop it, so they stopped development.
Oh, well, the Maginot Line was a fucking joke. And now the Gustav gun
So
is
the Gustav gun
Yes.
was real. The Gustav gun was real.
Really? Do you think it's still somewhere?
Perhaps,
I
yeah,
wonder, eh?
perhaps. But it was easily stopped because they could blow them apart so they stopped making them. The Habakkuk, a ship made from a combination of wood pulp and ice. Well, that combination is called pykrete, which is easily molded and holds up to melting temperatures far longer than ice, but it still melts. Remember how I told you they hadn't prepared aircraft carriers? This was supposed to be a quick and easy way to make aircraft carriers. Canadians were developing it. Yeah. It's an absolute fuck up. They literally did work on them. They made some. They were just shit. The Buckingham tank, a 1 meter high tank, disc shaped, designed to drive under the fire of traditional tanks. I made it up! I made this bastard up. I figured that calling it the Buckingham tank would get the fuck out of you. So that's the correct answer. That was not a real World War II weapon. The Krummlauf, a gun with a bent barrel for shooting around corners, was a real weapon. Yeah, the attachment turned out to be highly impractical because bullets often shattered while exiting the barrel, and the attachment itself became distorted from the immense pressure after a few hundred rounds. But yeah, so it's the Buckingham tank is entirely made up by me. That was the right answer. I figured calling it something traditionally English would fuck with you. I'm glad it did. I'm delighted.
That's fucking good one. That was nice ones. That was
Thank you.
really, really lovely. Mine's far simpler than that. Mine's far simpler. You might even guess it quite easily, unless you have a bit of brain fog. But Princess Diana.
Princess Diana used to carry an RPG wherever she went. She was a big fan of mine. She was a big fan of mines, wasn't she? Was.
Exactly. She did some good work in which of these countries? Mozambique, Sudan, Angola, or the other one?
The other one?
Ethiopia.
It's not the other one. It's not the other one. It's not the one you forgot.
It's Ethiopia, Sudan, Angola, Mozambique.
Angola.
Did you know? No, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, there's controversy about how much good work she did. Like, Christopher Hitchens is one of those guys who's like, she didn't do that much good work and that sort of thing. But
he's a bit bitter. He never got to sleep with her. To be honest, Christopher Hitchens good for many things.
And then Harry carried on her legacy and did a bit of that sort of thing in Mozambique, I think, which is very nice. Before he met, doesn't matter, don't go there. And then, but there's a very sweet story. You know, whatever people think of Diana, whether they like her or don't, the effect she had on people in hospitals and that sort of thing when she'd go and talk to them and touch them.
Did she used to?
This was her secret weapon. Look at me. Look at me. No, so
her
there
secret weapon was love.
Yeah. So there was a kid who'd had an accident with a landmine in Angola, and
was it an accident? Somebody put that there on purpose.
But she didn't stand on it on purpose. The kid. Yeah. And then Princess Diana went to go see the kid and touched her and asked if she was okay, and then So she'll be thinking of her. Hope she gets better. and then
she got better.
Well, no, I don't know. But
She grew new limbs.
no.
Oh,
What did happen?
This is very disappointing, Ryan.
What did happen was then she went away, and the nurse came.
And then she grew new limbs.
No.
Oh, still not. Still no new
far more
limbs for
powerful.
her.
And the kid says to the nurse, was in Portuguese, was that an angel?
And then she grew new limbs.
Then she grew
Right.
So that's so sweet. But yeah,
Ryan, I love your
Jonah.
innocent naivety. It's beautiful. It's great. Did she grow new limbs? That's what I want to know.
But landmines, I was
Anyway,
like,
so I was right, right? That was right.
Yes,
That's
you were
all that
right.
matters.
Well
Yeah,
done.
no, that's all that
But
matters.
landmines are a fucking thing. I was going to get into them, but I didn't.
Yeah, they've
but
been outlawed in
fucking
basically
hell.
every way. But to be honest,
But,
so has
they're
phosphorus.
being used now in fucking
That's what I'm saying.
Ukraine.
So is phosphorus bombs, and phosphorus bombs are being used as well. You know, so I mean, fuck war in general, and fuck weapons, and fuck everything about this entire podcast, because it sounds like we're glorifying this thing, right?
No, we're not. No.
No, we're not. Fuck all weapons.
Yeah,
Like,
humans are kind. They mostly shoot in the sky.
they do. 90% of us choose to shoot
The ones
sky.
who don't, watch out for them.
Yeah, they're the ones. Red flag. Red flag. Does your girlfriend shoot directly at the enemy? Red fucking flag. Anyway, thank you very much for joining
Thanks
us.
for joining us.
Subscribe, like, etc. Patreon starting very soon. If you are subscribed to this channel, you will get in for free. We promise. It'll involve lots of free stuff.
Oh, lots of fun stuff that only you'll see. Like,
Definitely not Afrikaans Santa. No
Wow.
Afrikaans Santa. Thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
watching. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.